and he was in the hospital on and off, and then pretty much he had come home, with hospice and all that, and basically come home to die. And he was like that. He was out of it. He couldn't tell you, who you were. He didn't know anybody. And like a couple days before he passed, it was like, he knew everybody. He was talking, just sitting up in the bed, talking normal, like nothing had happened. And but then a couple days later, he basically turned for the worse and passed away.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
I hear that kind of story from different people. It's like they get better before they get worse.
But I at one point, and the doctors were really amazed, and they basically checked his brain out after he was dead, and they said his brain was nothing much left of it. But what really surprised me, that if my dad would have been hallucinating, he wouldn't have been able to carry on the conversation I had with him. I mean, He was so alert of what was going on right then and there. I mean, it was so amazing. But then, I would think if he was talking to my mom and my uncles, then he would have been hallucinating. And he would have been hallucinating when he was talking to me. He wasn't.
Was that your first taste of the paranormal? Is that what got you in it?
No, I don't want to go into it too much. My first experience it's been a couple of different things. One, back in the mid-'70s, I went to got a job in North Carolina. I didn't like it. It caused me to get a divorce. We drove back in New Mexico in the desert late at night, and they didn't, in the mid-'70s, they had a speed limit of like 100 miles an hour or something. It was really ridiculous. So I was cruising in my GTO as fast as I, safely could drive that thing. And all of a sudden, the whole road and everything around me lit up like daylight. And I think, first thing going in my mind, oh, it's probably a helicopter. I must, I'm going to get stopped for something. So I pull off the road and I get out of the car, and it was this brightness, like it was hurting my eyes. That's how bright it was. I didn't hear a single sound. Nothing. Total quiet, nothing. And within a few seconds, it was gone, like poof, like that. My second experience in the paranormal happened around 2002, right around there. A friend of mine who just got done doing his internship, he's a medical doctor. I used to manage a couple professional camera stores. And we decided we wanted to go up to the Canadian Rockies and take some pictures of old ghost towns and an old internment camp for Japanese prisoners that were held in World War II. And we hiked in about 2 miles, and, I was getting ready to take pictures. My friend goes, "Hey, look at that big bear." And I had a telephoto on my camera. I'm going to take a picture of that bear. It wasn't a bear. Okay, and I don't want to.
That was a Bigfoot.
It was a Bigfoot, and it scared me so bad. We took off running, and the story is, very bluntly, by the time we got to the car, either it or its mate was waiting near the car, and I was never so scared in my life.
So you saw this twice, huh?
Oh, Bigfoot one time.
Well, twice in the same night.
Right.
Yeah, and that, like I said, it was either the same one or its mate or whatever. Yeah, when we got back to the car, I mean, we had to run about 2 miles to get to the car through the woods. And
fastest you ever went to, wasn't it?
Well, I peed myself. I can tell you that's how scared I was.
I imagine.
And it was more scary than anything I ran into in Vietnam. I'll tell you that. And when we got to the car, it was, like I said, right off in the bushes in the tree line. It was grabbing like a 25-foot tree, something like that, bending it over like nothing, and was screaming. And I got in that car. I started up. My friend wasn't even all the way in the car. I didn't even think about my friend at that point. I was so scared. I hit the gas. My friend was being dragged, half in the car and half not. And that was my experience of Bigfoot. Now, the other one, my last real experience of anything scary, paranormal, I managed, like I said, a chain of professional camera stores. The main store was in Tacoma. It originally was a hotel back in the 1870s, 1880s, with a bar in the basement. Mm-hmm. It originally had like 13 stories to it, and in the 60s, they took half of it off because it wasn't safe any longer. Now, it was a bar downstairs, which was long gone. We used that as our warehouse for the 3 stores. I would have employees. I would send down there, to get stock, for the store or for one of the other stores. Now, some of my employees, because we were right next to Fort Lewis and McChord Air Force Base. So, we would get, part-time soldiers. We get military people, looking for a job, and not hire them. And during a course like 13, 14 years, I was general manager there. I went through a lot of employees. Here's the funny thing. I would hire somebody. And, they'd go down the basement a couple of times, and then they'd come back up and say, I'm not going down there anymore. And, and they were shook up, and you start talking to them, and they would say things like, there's ghosts in the basement, or it's haunted. They saw things move. They heard things. The first couple people I heard that from,
right.
I figured,
that's what I was thinking.
I thought they were crazy, okay? I figured, okay, this guy's suffering something, from Afghanistan, but it kept happening, and I very seldom ever went down there. Now, the owner the president of the company never went down to the basement, and it took me to when I quit he actually told me that the reason why he wouldn't go in the basement. But it happened. It took years for me to have a paranormal experience in that basement. I went there one time, and I smelled lilac, really strong. I walked a couple feet later. Hey, I didn't smell anything. Okay, I figured that's strange. Maybe a few weeks later, I was down in the basement, and somebody tapped me really hard on my back shoulder, and I was about ready to swing around and slug somebody. There was nobody there. So I started thinking, wow, this is kind of weird, we had a lot of employees all saying the same thing, that the place was haunted. Then, also being electronic technician for my background, digital cameras were just starting to come out. The professional ones with the sensors, the sensors had to be clean. Well, the only time we could clean them is after the main store was closed, and I had to wait a couple hours for the dust to settle before I can go into, my office area and clean the sensors. I would be in my office, and this is after maybe being there 12 years, working there, I heard footsteps going upstairs, because we still had, the big staircase going upstairs to the offices, because it was a hotel at one time. I hear footsteps at night. And I think, the president of the company or somebody's here, checking up on me or whatever. Well, I'd go out there, nobody's there. Then I go check the doors, they're all locked. So then after that, I started double bolting the doors, the back door. For even if somebody had the key and opened it, they can't get in. I still heard the footsteps. Then, at first, it was like only one footstep going up it. And then all of a sudden, it kept... each time, over a period of time, it started, getting a little bit more and more. Then I'd hear a group of footsteps. And then the last time, and that was the last time I stayed there after hours, I heard footsteps going up. I heard muffled talking. I heard a woman muffled talking with the guys or whatever it was going up the stairs. Now, the building next to us, built onto us, was the old Bank of California. And they were closed up for years, so it was nobody in there, so it couldn't be coming through. And there was nobody in the building next to us. Now, I did find out at that point, when I did research, that there was a couple people, because it in Tacoma, the port was there. The Navy would come in, ships would come in, and they'd go up and hang out in the bar. Well, a couple people got killed downstairs in the bar. But then what really shocked me is I found out the upstairs was actually at one point a brothel. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple prostitutes that were killed in there. And one was killed and cut up. And I guess what the story is, from what I was reading from the archives, they were cut up and put in some type of, a big, these travel suitcases or whatever they are. And disposed of. And I don't know if it was those spirits or whatever it was, but it was something there. And to sum it up, after I talked about it on my show here a couple weeks ago, I decided to go to, because the business is long gone now. I mean, the camera business is not like it used to be. And, the owner is like way older than me. I think he'd be in his 90s by now. I went there, and now it's a title company. It's in that building. And I went in there and I said, hey, I used to work in here for a lot of years. And it's kind of curious. Has anything strange happened? And the receptionist go, what do you mean strange? I said, well, anything kind of strange. She goes, yeah, the place is haunted.
They're not going nowhere.
That gives a lot more credibility to it when others that have nothing to do with the original story or whatever will tell the same thing, We've heard, a lot of things in some of the places that we went to, and even we may not have heard any background on the place, went in there, and then talked to locals afterwards and have the same experience that they have had, So it seems like it gives a lot more credibility.
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, for years, I actually thought I hired a bunch of crackpots. And then, you'd hire a couple of camera salesmen. We had like 5 camera salesmen, that would work the sales floor. And, a couple of them would stay a couple years and then quit or get fired. And we bring other people. But they kind of all, got to meet each other basically, one by one. But the thing is, I if it was only 1 or 2 people would have came up and said to me, hey, Gary, I think something strange is going on downstairs. I would have figured they were crazy. But like I said, one of the guys was an ex-Navy SEAL. One of the guys I know was a ex-Ranger. One of them was a chief bosun mate, in the submarine force that even served on the USS Treasure, that one that sunk. And actually, he was supposed to go on that sub. And he got sick, and he managed to stay alive. But it's strange. I had very credible people working for me, and
that takes it to a different level. When you have witnesses like that, and they're telling you things, it gives you more. The excitement builds up in me before something like that. When you got, it goes to a different level. And a lot of times too, when police and fire are called in for activity in a building where someone's not supposed to be in, and they're seeing and hearing, seeing shadows walk through there, footsteps walking through, like you're talking, about. We enjoy going to those, in other words. But and we bought you some more files this time too.
Oh, great! Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, guys, if you can answer a question. Why? Sure. I mean, I worked there almost 14 years before and that's one of the reasons why I quit. Is because what I went through, it really shook me up. Because I'll be honest with you, before it happened to me, I didn't believe in the hereafter at all, or ghost. And like I said, I thought my employees were all a bunch of, crackpots. But it took years before it happened to me there. That's what I found so strange.
Yeah, well, they don't perform on command. There's no doubt, but they may, and I've been told this before too, that they may feed on fear just a little bit. If they had they may have seen those as more vulnerable than you, and it just took a while before they decided to show themselves to you.
Well, I wish they wouldn't have. I mean, it was a good job.